Good morning, everyone. I am sorry I'm late. I did not know how to go live. This is my first Facebook Live. So I suppose that I'm doing this properly, and hopefully some of you will come online. So hello again. I am Laura Manqui, for those who do not know me. I am going to talk to you today about something that I love to talk about, which is the topic of self-responsibility. We're going to talk about a little bit about what is self-responsibility, why it is important for us to be self-responsible, and how we can be a little bit more self-responsible day by day. So I'm going to start off with a little story, but if you have any questions at the end, I will circle back and I can answer them at the end of this conversation. So to begin, I'd like to tell you a little story that I think highlights this topic very well. So the other day I was sitting on my sofa and I was with my daughter. My daughter's 4 years old. She was drawing on the sofa beside me, and she had her crayons on the sofa, and I told her repeatedly that that wasn't a good idea, that they could fall. So she kept on drawing, and then finally the inevitable happened, and they fell. And one of her crayons broke, the pink one. So she picked them up, and she showed me them, and she said, "Oh no, look what happened, the pink one, it broke." And I said, "Yeah, that was bound to happen. You left them on the sofa, they rolled off and they broke." And she looked at me and she said, "What? I didn't do this. A ghost did it. Why did ghosts do this to me?" She started crying. So she is 4 years old, right? And I cannot, at this age, it's very hard to understand self-responsibility. It's something that she's going to learn eventually, I hope. But I feel that this story highlights very well what we do sometimes. And what we do is we blame things on ghosts. So we blame things on other people, we blame things on our boss, on our partner, on our neighbors, on everybody else except ourselves. Now, this is not about blame, right? Hi, Emily. This is not about blame. We are talking about self-responsibility in this other sense. Self-responsibility is about looking at what is happening in our life and understanding how we've contributed to it. Now, I've read many times people who say we should be 100% responsible for the things that have happened in our life, and I do not believe that. So let me tell you a little bit about how I look at self-responsibility. So we can be responsible for 99% of the things that happen in our life when it is us that created something, in the sense that when we have done something to contribute, right? But there are many things in our life that just happen, and we cannot be responsible for them. So for example, a natural disaster, right? I was in an earthquake once, a 3-minute long earthquake, and I do not feel responsible for any part of that earthquake. Or sometimes when we talk about things that happened when we were young, or when we were inexperienced, or when other people have certain attitudes, or they have certain reactions, right? We cannot be responsible for other people's thoughts or reactions. But we can be responsible in 100% of the way we react to the things that happen to us. So, self-responsibility means the ability to understand what we have contributed to a situation and that made that situation come true. But it also means looking at what happened and seeing how we reacted after that and what we did after that and how we grew or how we lost an opportunity to grow in a situation. So, self-responsibility is a difficult subject. Self-responsibility means having the ability to look at what is happening in your life and to be aware, right? It's the ability to be aware of the things that happened and then taking some time and reviewing what you could have done differently in a situation or what you can do to take a step towards what you want to create for yourself. Why is self-responsibility important? Because if we put ourselves in a situation where we say that we can't change, when something happens to us and we react negatively, there is no growth. There is nothing that I can obtain from that situation. Nothing will change if I do not grow and if I do not learn with the situations that happen in my life. So that is self-responsibility. It is not about blaming. It is not about saying, oh, I acted in this horrible way. Why did I do this? No, it's about looking at what happened and then being able to react in a different way, to look towards what you want to create for yourself. Now, self-responsibility is a muscle. We have to flex this muscle. We have to grow it. To be able to use a tool in your life, you have to start using it. You have to start to see how it works for you. And in my case, I've been doing this for some time. I still feel it's difficult to be self-responsible. There are times where I am aware of what is happening and I am able to react in a way that's helpful for me, but there are many times where I just get angry or I act in a way that really isn't helpful. So what I'd like to do now is talk about how we can become more self-responsible. And as I mentioned, awareness is the first step. So the other day, I'm going to give an example of being self-aware and how that can help you out. So I had an accident. I had an accident on Sunday. I was walking in my living room and I didn't realize, I was looking to the other side. So I was looking at my daughter and I was walking and I stubbed my toe horribly against the steel leg of our tea table, of our living room table. And it hurt horribly, horribly, horribly. I knew in that moment I had fractured my toe because this is not the first time it happened. Around 8 years ago, I had fractured it already. So I stubbed my toe, I fractured my toe, I cried, it was horrible. And then when the pain and I had already understood what had happened, I started thinking to myself, oh no, what am I going to do? Now I can't do anything of work. I'm not going to be able to do anything. And I started spiraling down in those thoughts. And then I stopped and I said, okay, there is something that I must be able to do now, right? And this, again, is a muscle. So it's not that, it's not a special power. It's not that only certain people can do this. I have been practicing this for some time. So I was able to stop and say, okay, this is not the end of the world. It's really bad, right? What can I learn? Did I cause this? I did, right? I was not really taking into account what I was doing. I was looking to the other side. I was just not aware of what I was doing, right? So that's something that constantly comes up in my life. And so this is another reminder. But the interesting part, I think, and what I want to share with you, so you may be able to try to start doing this, is that I thought, okay, what do I want to achieve? And for a long time now, I have wanted to do these Facebook Lives. So for some time now, I have wanted to share information with you, have a conversation with you online. And I said, okay, maybe I will not be able to do everything that I wanted to do this month or this week. I will not be able to meet people. I will not be able to go to visit my clients, etc. But I can do this Facebook Live. And that's what I'm doing now, right? It's a decision that we have to make, but it is absolutely possible. So another example I can give you of someone that I noticed that was not empowered and how maybe that could have changed. I am part of a group in Facebook. It's for podcasters. I'm going to launch my podcast soon. So I'm part of this group of women podcasters. And one of the ladies had received a negative review. And the review, she posted it online, and actually it wasn't negative. It was kind of, it was constructive. So what they said was, it is hard to listen to somebody that is actually very famous and very important for an hour or for 40 minutes. Maybe you should look at changing the format of your podcast so your interviews can be more interesting. That was basically what the review said. This lady took it very, very negatively. And she said, oh, I got this negative review, and this is my 7th episode. I'm thinking of quitting. Okay. A lot of energy put into that. She wrote this down. People commented, sometimes we want help. Sometimes we want people to be nice to us. It's totally understandable. But the step to get out of that was another thing. What did she really want to achieve with this? Why did this happen, right? A more empowered, more self-responsible way of looking at this would have been, okay, I got this review. And it's true. What the person was saying was true. It was totally understandable. What can I do now? How can I make my interviews more interesting? Okay. So I'd like for you to take a moment, for those who are here, to take a moment and think about a situation that you have had in the past few days or in this last week about where you see that you weren't as empowered and weren't as self-responsible as you could have been. And why do I ask you to do this? Because once again, to be self-responsible, we have to be aware of what's happening. So I'd like you to take a moment to think about this. And we all have these moments. So moments where we blamed other people, moments where we felt bad about ourselves. And I'd like you to think about what was the decision that you took that made you feel unresponsible, right? That made you unresponsible. So an example, last week I wanted to go to an event. I couldn't go because I couldn't coordinate with my husband for him to take care of my daughter. And I really dragged my feet on making the decision of going. So what happened was that when I spoke to him and we talked about it, it was too late. He couldn't change his schedule, so I wasn't able to go. The next day, and I did this at very, very last moment. So the next day, my husband said, "Okay, so what are you going to do today? What does your day look like?" And I was sulking. I was like, well, I wanted to go to that event, but I can't now. I was sulking. Not self-responsible, right? At that moment, I wanted to sulk. And many times we want to feel bad. We just want to mourn a little bit, or we want to sulk, or we want to feel bad. But after that, we can make a decision. So my decision at that moment was to sulk, maybe generate a bad environment, right? My husband, he didn't care, but it could have happened. Instead of saying, okay, well, next time I will be more prepared and I'll let him know, and that way we can schedule this. Instead of feeling bad and creating stories at the end about, his work is more important than mine, or stuff like that, right? So think about a situation that you have had in this last week where you realized that you have not been as empowered and as self-responsible as you could have been, and think about what was the decision you took there, okay? Now, we can do this to be able to kind of create this muscle, to create this habit. We can do this constantly. So maybe at the end of your day, think back into the situations that you remember where you realize that maybe you could have been more self-responsible. Think about that decision that you took. My decision was to sulk. So what would have been a better decision? What would have been a more empowering decision? What would have been a decision where you took the opportunity to grow? Okay. This is one exercise. I also, there are also people who journal. So journaling really helps you shed light on anything that you do. But at the end of the day, if you take your notebook and write down what happened, a little bit about it, and analyze how you are in your daily life in regards to self-responsibility, after a week or two, you will be able to understand very well who you are, or what is your level of self-responsibility. It's a little bit more difficult. It takes a little bit more time, but it's very, very helpful. And then once you are more aware of how you are, how self-responsible you are, then it's time to take action and to little by little start making the decision of being more self-responsible, right? And once again, it's not easy, but habits are formed bit by bit. So if you are more aware, maybe pausing, right? Maybe just breathing in a second and saying, okay, how can I be more fair? How can I be more self-responsible? How can I do myself a service instead of a disservice in this situation? Okay. So that has been my conversation about self-responsibility today. If you have any questions, please just write them down here in the comments. If you come back and listen to this or see this later, feel free to ask questions. I always go back to comments. I always answer them. And I'm super happy for those who have been here. Thank you so much. Hey, Lily. And finally, if you're interested in knowing more and getting a bit more of value around self-empowerment, self-responsibility, and other themes of the sort, please feel free to sign up for my newsletter. I will put the link in the comments now, but you can easily find where you can subscribe on my website. So it's www.flourished.me. At the end of the page, you'll find where to subscribe. And thank you. And I hope to see you in 2 weeks. I'll be doing these Facebook Lives every 2 weeks. I'm not sure if it's going to be exactly at this time, but I do hope to see you very soon. Thank you so much. Bye.